When you think of a class, you probably think of its strengths immediately, but one of the things you don't think of is how good is it at getting the enemies weaker, for example. Debuffing targets is just as strong as buffing yourself, and turns out to be even stronger if you pair the two, obviously. I mean, Pokemon players know this all too well. Many different players out there know stack your buffs and your debuffs, and you will succeed in many different fights. Although these games, like games like this, action games, don't always have these kinds of mechanics. When they do, they are to be utilized like precious relics, precious treasures, trust me. Especially at the higher difficulties you go, they are to be just cherished, alright? Along with probably the most powerful ability in the game, other than maybe the bulwarks, the tactical has easily the most versatile arsenal of weapons you can choose from, too, making it probably the best class for jack of all trades, or even just people that like all these different weapons to play with a range setup, I would say. Above all else, I mean, this guy specializes in damage and debuffing stuff, so what doesn't sound good about that, you know? Like, come on now. Okay, looking at the old tactical here, I'm using the bolt rifle. Honestly, it's a bit of a surprise, I know, for a lot of you, because Plasma Incinerator is fantastic, but as you can see, I've been kinda slacking on using it. Kinda just fell in love with using the normal bolt rifle with a grenade launcher on it, believe it or not. This thing is pretty crazy, surprisingly. Go ahead and give it a shot if you don't believe me. We only have the one bolt pistol. Use the accuracy upgrade because it helps you spam damage out there more consistently at a range too, but honestly I can see why people would run this one. Just saying. Chainsword, standard procedure, just get the fencing upgrade, you know that whole song and dance. As far as perks go, I use this very first one here for the bolt weapons, penetrating one-way enemy. If you're going to use the plasma incinerator, it's obvious you use the plasma boost instead of Kraken penetrator rounds. That one's always up to you at the end of the day. I use Relentless Pursuit because I do a lot of gun strikes for extra range damage. And I would say versatility is good too, but I want the extra damage for the primary, not just the secondary. So I use Relentless Pursuit over that. Emperor's Vengeance is really good for keeping the ball rolling whenever you're in the fight, killing any majorist level enemy or higher. It does say that. Will restore your primary weapons ammo by 1 mag, which is our bolt rifle. For a long time, I was using aligned aim, but 5% extra ranged, it just doesn't feel like enough, so I went with transhuman physiology, and it makes it to where we just restore more contested health. Better for survivability in the higher difficulties, if I would be honest. Vital data for scanning the extremist or terminus level enemies gives me 50% of the charge back. Just kind of makes sense. If the fight's going to go the distance, you want this as much as possible. For a long time I was using Battle Focus just to get scans out there whenever it's off cooldown or just for free for parrying things, but I switched over to Precise Calibration so that the enemies that are marked will take extra damage, but the radius is smaller of the scan. Not a huge deal. All the clips have expert timing, where you get 100% more damage, but at the cost of the mark's duration being reduced by 4 seconds. It's not really that good, but it's good enough, right? I want to use concentrated fire a bit more. Same bonus, but if they walk outside the scan area, which it's smaller thanks to this perk, they just lose the mark. May not be as good, we'll see. And then I use the headshot will instantly kill majors or extremist level enemies that are marked. Way too good of a perk. Oh my god. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why would this guy use the bolt rifle over the plasma incinerator? Because plasma incinerator has some of the craziest AoE that you can get, and depending on your upgrades, you can have a lot of those shots before she overheats. Honestly, kind of just haven't got to the weapon yet, even though I've tried it and I know how good it can be. It's not upgraded. So what I went with instead was this old bolt rifle, folks. Let me tell you, this thing, it's a standard bolter rifle, right? As far as the lore goes, it is a legitimate holy relic, stuff that they do like prayers, ceremonies, all these kind of litanies and stuff. Like, I don't know the extents, alright, but I know that this thing's treated with the utmost respect, and even beyond that, I would say. It itself is above a lot of the normal human lives in this game's world. So why wouldn't I try to use one of the more iconic weapons and see how good she feels, like how she operates. The grenade launcher is the selling point on this thing, in my opinion. It is the extra little bit of sugar, spice, and everything nice that this gun could get. Like it decides, okay, the fight a lot of the time, because the gun is good on its own. Its bullets are great. With the perks we have, it can penetrate targets quite well. But nothing beats 6 to 7 frag grenades attached to your gun. Sure, they shoot out a little slow, but the damage output that these things have, especially if you get a scan on it, is ungodly at times, folks. Like, you seriously have to give this shit a try. It rocks, alright? It was one of those things that was hard to drop once I started using it. And the tactical has so many weapons, it's like you basically are just spoiled for choices. Seeing that this one is so good is one thing. Seeing the plasma incinerator do good is another. But I guarantee you, they have even more stuff that just rocks so hard. Tactical has it made, okay, folks? Truly eating good out there. And I mean, plenty of maps, by the way, have funnels like this. That's why the grenade launcher is also really good. Just a FYI. But at the end of the day, you could always try the one with the one extra firepower stat, and it probably would still do good. But scenarios like this is why I value the grenade launcher. You can kind of hold back hordes, whole chunks of them, by yourself, just because you have extra explosives. Makes me kind of wish we had an explosives only class in this game. That'd be actually really cool, not gonna lie. But until then, we basically just have grenade launchers, all noob tubes, you know what I'm saying, to rely on. And, they're old faithful, they're old reliable for a reason. I don't see a lot of people using them, but it's one of those things where as soon as people get the reminder, it may be all that they need to truly try it and experience it again. You know what I mean? When it comes down to just like what does the tactical specialize in, I mean, you name it and this guy does it, you know what I mean? Like, he does swarm killing, he does boss killing, he does anything and everything you need him to do other than heal, I guess, Like, tactical has it all. Kind of like how the bulwark had all of the package plus the healing. Tactical has all of the offensive package, okay? It has the means to take on anything in front of it easily a lot of the time, especially if the scan is up, and walk out pretty much unscathed. Like, as you can see, I can face tank grenade launcher shots, and it doesn't hurt me, but everything around me usually dies in one hit, or is executable, or is on its way to being executable. Because even I'll admit, if the target is not scanned, it can take, for a Majoris, 3, 4 grenades to finish the job, and that's only grenades, but you shouldn't just be using the grenades. You need to sprinkle in some of the normal rounds that you have in the bolt just to make sure, because the full, like, package of the bolt rifle isn't just a grenade launcher, obviously. It's being able to use the grenade launcher and an automatic weapon in tandem to truly get every bit of damage, but it also just flows well, to be fair. Like, the grenades are good for swarms, they're good for Majoris, and even the card effects like you're seeing in the background here. I'm pretty sure that you can aim it at the head of a Carnifex or anything large, and it should count for headshot damage, the grenades. So don't be afraid to be accurate, but also don't be afraid to just spam them because it's a grenade launcher at the end of the day. Like, it's meant to be spammed, it's meant to be thrown out there willy nilly sometimes. So, depending on the context of what you're doing and what you're fighting, use it as you see fit, of course. This is really just like rough guideline of like, hey, this thing is actually pretty good. You should try it out. It's not really like play by play of like, yeah, this is how you do this. This leads into that, and so on. You know, your playstyle is your playstyle. You'll figure it out if you ever try it, or if you don't, hey, that's fine. But I will say it's really good to take advantage of the marked for death perk. The bolt rifle is because it's just so steady. It has decent enough recoil where you can shoot out of range, and any Majoris enemy, if they're pinged, will just die to that one tap to the head, just destroying any fodder all around them at a range, at a distance so easily. Like, it's kind of hard to beat that. That itself is like a high that is kind of hard to stop chasing. It really does come down to if you would enjoy that, because, like I said earlier, the grenade launch is a little slow, so in times of need and peril, you may find that it doesn't shoot fast enough for you, but trust me, it will get the job done if you let it guide you through the dark ages, okay? It will do the thing you need it to do, and hopefully it'll do it well, depending on how good your aim is, of course. A little bit of advice, though, is don't throw away your health bar like I do in certain scenarios just to get the one tap on a Zoanthrope or a Ravener, because, like, yeah, it's cool, but, now you're just left with no health. And this is a little showcase of the damage the bolt rifle can do, just in case you ever were curious, like, oh, how much damage does it actually do by the end of the time? Well, yeah, by the end of the match, you can do Melta levels of damage, Laz level of damage. It's because the grenade launcher itself, I'm pretty sure, counts for range damage, of course, so as you're taking on huge hordes like this, with shooting it into a boss level enemy or just slightly lower, you're just racking up that number, that damage. People like that. A lot of people like seeing the big number go up even further, so figured I'd at least put it on people's radar that the bolt rifle can hang in terms of damage. Even if you didn't think it could, it can do it. It actually is crazy to me, but it goes to show you that the pretty much just staple gun, other than maybe a las gun, is truly one of the best options. They did it right. Just they treated this thing beautifully, I would say. I would say it's also a pretty balanced weapon. Not a whole lot of bullets, but it's got just enough to get the job done. And, like 7, 8 grenades when it's maxed out on the relic tier. You don't really need more than that. There's enough ammo around everywhere that you can usually restock and whatnot to get that back. Hell, a lot of the time, I mean, if we're in the last part of the mission, I wouldn't mind just sitting next to the ammo cache and just shooting grenades off just to get it done quicker, but, I like to use both parts of the gun, so I don't always do that, but for a fight like this Hive Tyrant, I'm definitely not above it. I mean, you can see me trying to get it right there and then, but I didn't find it on that side, so I wasn't as lucky. And I will say the perks, pretty flexible depending on what you prefer. Sure, I just have the ones that I personally like and personally would be crazy. Like, there is that one where you scan them and the equipment does more damage, but I don't even feel like you need that. That's almost overkill. I'd rather get the value out of the other perks, but at the end of the day, it's up to you what you run. I recommend some things. See for yourself what you like, alright?